Hey friends, welcome. Episode 149. Thanks for being here. Super stoked to have Yerasimos on with me today. How's it going today, man? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you as well, man. It's
Cool.
going pretty well, man. I had a nice little morning.
Yeah.
Was in a class early on, like 5 a.m., and then just some
Wow.
work outside in the yard and some work with Joel, the other Joel.
Yeah, yeah,
And
cool.
here we are.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to interviewing him as well. And I'm gonna reach out in a couple days. And yeah, I appreciate your interview with Jesse Elder. That really was helpful for me. And then I ended up having a talk with him recently that kind of like moved my perception pretty good. He's a really powerful dude, and it's cool that you got David Icke. So for those of you that aren't familiar, Yerasimos and Joel Graffiti have a channel called Are You Here for the Truth? Um, and then there's a community that you can enter that is part of that. And my daughter is found her way to your community, Savannah. So I'm really stoked that she has you guys in her life. And the G&M stuff's really got her just passionate right now. So glad you guys are offering that. And it sounds like a really cool community.
Yeah, it's really cool, man. I mean, the podcast, yeah, Here for the Truth. Our Instagram is Are You Here for the Truth? Joel and I started it in May of 2021. Just a really synchronistic way we even met also, which is like I'm so amazed by that, like the things that occur in your life, the things you say yes to, and then how there's that ripple effect that then impacts so much. And then yeah, Friends of the Truth is a really cool community, and it just keeps growing. And we have like several calls a month, and then one of the calls is a self-healing circle. It's focused on looking at things through a GNM GHK lens, which it's a body of work that has impacted me for the last, I guess, since I first heard about it in 2020. So yeah, it's just it's cool to have people come together that share like a diverse range of interests, and at the
Mhm.
same time, and that are open to these things, and at the same time, like as many of us, some things we're drawn to more than others.
Yeah.
But I appreciate knowledge, and especially knowledge that expands and empowers and gives people more agency in their lives.
hmm Yeah, so
Um,
I mean, what's kind of your journey been with realizing that what we've been told in school and on the news and stuff may not be so accurate? Did you kind of have a pivotal moment in your life where you started to come out of hypnosis a little bit, or did you start asking questions that you didn't get good answers for? Or
Yeah, I think I was always a curious kid, and at the
Mhm.
same time, I grew up, upper middle class, two Greek parents, Greek immigrants. My dad and mom kind of came to this country with nothing. Well, my dad first, and then he went back to Greece to find my mom, and they came here. But yeah, I think when it really happened for me, trying to think after college. I think when you're going through, like for me, I went through college and I experimented with different substances, and that added to like my life experience
Yeah.
that made me see things in different ways. And then after college, I made the decision before I started my post-college job wearing a suit and tie every day. I made a decision. I want to take some savings I have and backpack around Europe. And so I
Cool.
put on a backpack. This was pre-Kindle days, so this was 2002, and I packed like a suit, like in my backpack, like several books. And I think like necessary for anyone that's on this path, in my opinion, you need time for yourself. Like you need time to be alone, to reflect, to sit in a park, to sit on a bench, to look around, to like interact externally and then internally, without a lot of distractions, especially from a media standpoint. And so I think for me, that process of being alone and being on long bus rides or train rides and reading books and putting a book down and thinking, it just allowed me to kind of know myself and get my and on a deeper level. And 9/11 happened my junior year in college. And so I still
Yeah.
remember like I was in bed with my ex-girlfriend, and I just like woke up and heard about it, and I was like, what? And something felt weird, but at that point, I mean, I was 21 years old. I didn't really know what was really going on. But shortly after my trip to backpacking Europe, I started my first post-college job. I worked in the hotel business. I grew up in the restaurant business, so I thought the hospitality industry was going to be my path. And I
hmm
really enjoyed like being of service. I enjoyed making people happy. I definitely was a bit of a people pleaser growing up, so it was like the perfect industry to go into. But with some of my free time, because at that time I worked at a property that the company I got hired with out of college, they placed me at a property close to my home in New Jersey. So I
Mhm.
went, hey, you know what? I'm going to move home, stack some cash while I work and just work. But I had leisure time and I was exploring the internet. And I started coming across a lot of the early stuff on 9/11 Truth,
Yep.
some of the documentaries that came out. And that just like was like, what? What the fuck? And and I think if you're a curious person, and I'm really into human design, and so I have the one line, which is the investigative
Mhm.
line that wants to get to the bottom of things, build a secure foundation of knowledge, that I just kind of rolled with it. And I just kind of delved into a lot of different things. And it was kind of that moment initially where I went, oh, there are other narratives that people are sharing that isn't being shared on CNN, Fox News, whatever at that time, 24 years ago, 23 years ago,
Yeah.
something like that. And then the other big moment for me was after 2 years, I decided climbing the ladder in like the corporate hotel world like wasn't for me.
Right.
And so the timing was 2004. I packed a suitcase full of books and I went to my parents have a place in Greece, and it was during the summer of the Olympics, and I thought, let me just sit around and read books
Mhm.
all day. And I'm blessed that I had that opportunity. And I created that opportunity in the sense of I moved home and I saved money, and I went, what am I going to do with this money that I saved? And I wanted to continue my travels. And so after that, I made the decision that I wanted to pursue an acting career. I took a class in college. I really loved performance. I loved cinema. I loved storytelling. I love the journeys that I went on as a child or even a teen, like watching these things, tapping into different parts of me, tapping into different emotions, aside from all like the garbage stuff that's out there as well, and a lot of the heavy kind of dark mind control stuff. Storytelling's been part of humanity from the beginnings.
Yeah.
So I moved to New York City. I grew up in Jersey. I moved to New York City, and my first acting mentor, actually, he was definitely an alternative thinker, and so he was connected to the AIDS dissident community, like HIV/AIDS, like challenging
Yeah.
HIV/AIDS, not from like the no virus standpoint, but just like the idea that this virus is what causes all these different diseases.
Right.
And so he gave me a book, which was the autobiography of Dr. Carrie Mullis.
Mm.
It's called Dancing Naked in the Minefield. And
Mm.
then that book, he talks about there's like different chapters on different subjects, like astral travel and challenging the global warming narrative, and then challenging HIV and AIDS. And so I started reading that stuff and I went, wait, what? So again, it's like these moments, these aha moments of
Yeah.
this thing I'm reading makes more sense than what we're being told. So it's my own form of discernment and curiosity that went, nah, this definitely feels closer towards the truth than what I know up until this point. And so that kind of I would say, besides 9/11, my initial foray into realizing the world isn't what it is was through, let's say, the health, the medical, scientific establishment, and initially through like kind of the HIV AIDS. I mean, I want to call it fraud and misinformation. And so I
Mhm.
kept pulling at those threads. And I guess just to make a long story short, continued from there. I think I had a period where I also like took a break from like going down rabbit holes and exploring conspiracy. But the seed was planted there, and I was pretty much like not aligned with the allopathic model, you know, very early on, outside of maybe some, emergency reasons to seek out like
Yeah.
hospitals and MDs. But generally speaking, I went, this just doesn't align. And it also doesn't even relate to, like, I come up from a Greek lineage. I had multiple relatives that lived to be 100, over 100 years old. And they were
Wow.
very poor. And like, they didn't have access to like the greatest technology and the best doctors money could buy. And so, okay, that played on my consciousness. So, well, why is that? Why do these people in these so-called blue zones, that we started hearing about whenever that was 15, 20 years ago, why are they living to, over 100 years old or late in their 90s? What is it about that lifestyle that provides this contentment and vitality and health? And so, yeah, I just realized there was more to health than what we were being told, and it's just been a continuous journey, exploring these subjects.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome, man.
You know,
Yeah, it can be really empowering, to come out of this stuff and realize that you can use your intuition instead of, rely on people to tell you what's what. And you start asking these questions. When 2020 hit, was there still some part of you that believed in pandemics?
no,
You'd already cleared that.
that was I mean, from day one I was like, this is bullshit. I was texting with like some of my conspiracy homies and
Yeah,
alternative. I wouldn't say at that point I was on like the path of like completely disregarding virology. That kind
right.
of came maybe a few months into it.
Yeah,
And when I first got exposed to G&M and some of the other thinkers out there, people that we know, like Cowan, Andy Kaufman, and the
yeah.
Baileys, and Don Lester, and other people like that nature of that nature that were challenging the dogma around, infectious disease. But
Hmm.
no, I mean, when it happened, I was like, this is BS.
Awesome.
So I was grateful for that, and I was grateful that my wife and I are on a similar page,
Yeah,
because I
right.
know from many people, from stories I've heard, that when 2020 hit, there was a huge, gap
Hmm.
between one person in a relationship versus the other person in a relationship, and what they thought and what they believed, and that got caused a lot of splits. So
Yeah,
I'm very grateful for that.
right.
But I think also too, like, beyond like not being hip to some of the stuff around virology, but just my general views on health. I'm like,
Yeah.
really? Like, even when I had like a much stronger belief in like the immune system, the way we've been taught, I was just like, I'm fine. Like, no one's gonna get me sick because they next to me, or they touch me, or they breathe on me, or they sneeze on me. Like, I've been
Yeah,
around ill people many times in my life
right.
before that, and I went, it's cool. You can hug me. I'll be fine.
That's good, man. Yeah. Yeah, coming out of fear, it changes everything, and so it's crazy to really reflect on how much fear got put into the system that during that time, and just kind of how gangster it is that you can shut down that many economies.
Oh yeah.
It's like that's a lot of power to have, so I always knew that the world was this way, but 2020 really was like validating
Mm-hmm.
that these control systems are that capable of, overseeing propaganda across the board. But G&M's been a huge breakthrough to look into too, because I've always known there was a psychosomatic component to everything, and so it's cool to, and I'd love for you to elaborate, like give a synopsis on G&M for those that aren't familiar yet. But because I don't understand it well enough, but yeah, it just seems like that's such a powerful body of knowledge that you can look into to help realize that we're not all lab rats, and that you can't apply the same situation to everyone across the board, because not everyone is the same. So I'd love to hear just like how you
Yeah,
came into
sure.
G&M, and yeah.
Sure. And just as a disclaimer, I'm not a quote unquote expert in this subject. We have
Yeah,
had probably at this point 8 or 9 episodes on the podcast,
cool.
on GNM, GHK related. So GNM, German New Medicine. Some people use the term GHK, Germanic healing knowledge, and then like the main term, or like the German term, Germanische Heilkunde, or whatever it is. I think they use that. So they're used interchangeably. Some people don't like to use GNM because of the medicine term. But
Mm,
yeah, I actually first came across it because I was in some like truther thread early in 2020 on Telegram, and Melissa Sell was on there, and
cool.
she was living close by, a few hours away, so we connected and we became friends. And so, again, like, as I've been in through my whole life, like, if something hits me and lands, like, it lands. Especially
Yeah.
then when I reflect it back to my personal experience, I go, well, this makes sense to me.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, like you said, I think people have said for, oh, stress causes disease, but like that's so general and vague. Like, what's the
Mhm.
specificity? I love the specificity and nuance from a GNM standpoint that goes into your perception, how you perceive certain events in your life is going to impact how your body adapts.
Mhm.
So not so like it's not everyone isn't going to be impacted equally by the same events. Like, what is your level of fear? What is the state of your nervous system? How dysregulated are you? You and I could be brothers, and then we can experience the death of a parent, but then that's going to impact you differently versus impact me. My perception is going to be different than your perception, perhaps. And then how that then impacts the body is going to be different.
Yeah.
So, once I started kind of getting into learning about the five biological laws, Dr. Hammer's story, which was really fascinating to hear. It just then you start having your own experiences, and then you start reflecting back to other like maybe health stuff you had, and you go, well, that makes more sense to me.
Mhm. Mhm.
So again, it's just the idea outside of physical trauma, malnutrition, and poisoning that disease, quote unquote disease, and sickness, which is pretty much healing responses in the body starts in the psyche. How does the psyche, that apparatus that is constantly taking things in subconsciously as well, how does it interpret things in
Yeah.
life? And
Yeah.
then what happens in your body because of that?
Mhm.
And so uh, it's why I'm an advocate of nervous system work too, because I feel like the more regulated you are,
Yeah.
that no one's going to escape life in the sense of
Right.
things happen, traumatic things happen, but what is your response to it? So the more grounded, the more connected to like love, the more regulated you are, you're going to respond differently than someone who is the opposite of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, what you said about earlier, like the power structures in this world, they utilize people's dysregulation
Yeah.
and trauma and fear,
Mhm.
and we saw it. I mean, we saw it in real time. And so I
Mhm.
think like the people that are the least fearful, and I think there's some fears that are rational, obviously, but like generally speaking,
Yeah.
like least fearful, grounded, connected to who they are, connected to their intuition, they're going to experience a different type of health than someone who isn't.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'm not going to give a complete rundown of Dr.
Yeah.
Hammer's work. I mean, there's people that know this way better than I can and they can look into. But
Yeah.
for me, it just with all the things that I learned around health and wellness, like I said earlier, that was my entry point into this whole what is the truth? What is closer to the truth? I haven't found anything that makes more sense to me than in terms of why symptoms manifest in the body
Mhm.
than Dr. Hammer's work. And that's me, that's my personal opinion. And I know there are other people that share that as well. And because I just have so many personal stories of seeing it occur. And that explains it way more than, oh, I'm just detoxing,
Mhm.
or oh, I have food poisoning,
Mhm.
and,
Mhm.
and I think that's the issue that I have with some people in like the general terrain community. It's like they just slap this detox label on everything. And to me, that feels like not very scientific and not very specific to me.
Sure.
Um, and so, I mean, they'll say, oh, metaphysical toxins or emotional stuff. But again, it doesn't feel specific and nuanced to me.
Yeah.
And so that's why yeah, I like this work. And it gives me, learning G&M has provided more peace to me around when things do come up.
Yeah.
Like I go, okay, nature doesn't make mistakes. There's a reason why this is happening. My body's going through a process. I don't need to fear symptoms.
Mhm.
And I also don't need to obsess over
Mhm.
even the why sometimes, because I
Mhm.
think it depends on each person's individual psyche and personality. You can take certain knowledge that you learn, but then you could become obsessed over it. And if you have a big inner critic, you could be like, well, I just learned G&M, and why do I have this conflict? And you could just, micromanage your inner life as well, which isn't,
Right.
I don't think, is it beneficial.
Yeah.
So, so those are my thoughts on it. I know you've been exposed to this work, so I'm curious,
Yeah.
you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still in the inquiry stage around all of it, talking to Kevin here, who I live with, and his understanding of Chinese medicine
Hmm.
and the areas where he doesn't fully understand how GNM would work and be explained. So I'm not, I'm in the unknown around all of it, which I like to be. I don't want to ever be in a fixed understanding of anything. It's all mysterious to me. I think we're all strange, magical creatures and that we're not actually physical and that we're in a holographic projected experience. And that's what shamans have discovered, or like Yogananda discovered that it's all luminosity, it's all light. So I think the more aware a person is around that, around their energy levels and the freedom that comes perceptually kind of determines so much about what kind of challenges they're going to face.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree that everything happens to us. I mean, for us, not to us. It's like this place is here to help us. But there's also interfering energies, that are in place to sort of nibble off of people's fear, and or that there's things higher on the food chain. So I've noticed that shamans that are really powerful can eat whatever they want. They're not negatively impacted by the things that most people are, and that's impressive. That suggests that we can come out of victimhood and become liberated. And I think GNM and Kelly Brogan and people that talk about victimhood as the main problem, like what is actually going on. And it's this self-importance, this me, what's going to happen, where you just contract, and then that fear is what creates, it makes it so difficult for the body to fix itself because I think the body is intelligent. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's luminous and energetically primarily, and the physicality is secondary. And so the more a person has access to that energetic side, the more light that is in their eyes, the more likely they're going to be able to navigate the challenges as they present themselves. But when you look at a challenge as a problem rather than just an opportunity, that the words are powerful, right? So I think GNM is
Mm-hmm.
a great system to come out of fear through. So yeah, I'm fascinated, and Savannah is in the process of helping explain it to me more, and I enjoy those conversations with her, and it's cool that
Yeah.
it's
I
been
love
really
it.
cool to watch her heal because unfortunately as parents we like thought gluten was the problem. We thought, all this stuff, and then she wasn't able to eat the things she wanted to eat. And then that just like totally caused so many problems around just expression or just being liberated as an individual. And then she would sneak it, right? And then she'd have guilt and be trying to cover up and not tell us. And it just like what a shit show we created for her. And I feel so bad, but we just didn't know any better and we were trying to help, but it wasn't helpful. So I'm just so thankful that she found it, that she found you
Yeah.
guys, that there's a way out of those storylines into a more liberated way of living.
Yeah, man. Thank you for saying that and all that. Well said. And it's the rigidity that I think becomes the issue,
Yeah.
that happens internally around stuff and foods and substances. And the other thing too, man, that you highlighted, there's so much mystery. Like
Yeah.
I like living in the mystery. Like, sure, I have convictions. Sure, there's some things that I know, but there's so much I don't know. And even from like a GNM standpoint, like,
Mhm.
does it solve every single health conundrum that's ever existed? Like, I don't think so. There's
Yeah.
still things that we don't know, we don't fully understand. Um, but it's been cool to witness my own personal experiences around it. And I'm going to share one story because it really highlighted things from that made sense from the G&M standpoint. About a few years ago, you've been to our home. There's an easement road that runs through our property, so it acts as the driveway to our neighbors behind us. And a few years ago, we had crazy rainstorms. So there's
Mhm.
a culvert that goes under the easement road, and we didn't realize it was like clogged and blocked. So after one of the storms, it flooded back in the one area of our property like 6, 7 feet high.
Whoa.
Then Then 3 weeks later, another rainstorm came and the same thing happened. But the following morning, I went down and I just saw a massive sinkhole
Hmm.
in the easement road, like 70% of it, about 25 feet wide, 15 feet deep, just sunk.
Man. Man.
Okay. So when you think of from a G&M standpoint, for those that don't know, there is that conflict shock, that DHS moment named after Dr. Hammer's son, where it's like you're caught off guard. It's something acute, like you didn't plan for. And I just remember that moment of just like I wouldn't say I was like upset or scared. I was just like, it was like the internal manifestation of WTF, mouth down. Like, what do I do? Like, what, is this my responsibility? Is this not my responsibility?
Oh,
Sophie was out of the country.
yeah.
And so I remember, and the people behind us were renting. And so I had to get in touch with the owners and finally got in touch with the owners. We're having it back and forth, letting them know. To make a long story short, about after a week, I got a text from one of them was saying, yeah, we realize it's our responsibility, because I was looking things up from a legal standpoint and go, okay, well, it's our property, but we're not responsible for maintaining the easement. So they realized it was their responsibility and that they were reaching out to someone to come and fix it. This was like a major job, you know?
Yeah.
And so probably within 30 minutes or an hour of receiving that text message, I rushed straight to the bathroom
Yeah.
and was shitting water for like 3 days.
Wow. Wow.
Okay.
Totally.
So at that point, I was familiar with G&M and the five biological laws. And so, like, anyone
Hmm.
who isn't would be like, well, maybe you ate something, or maybe you're just detoxing. Again, like I'm poking fun out of it because that's what I do sometimes. Like, but
Yes.
for me, it was so clear that like when that moment happened, when I saw the sinkhole, I was like, then from that moment, conflict active, to use another G&M term, where it was like, how do I resolve this? How do I, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And then the moment of resolution came when I found out it wasn't our responsibility and we didn't have to dish out thousands and thousands of dollars to get it fixed.
Wow.
And then body went into healing. And, I mean, I didn't look it up. It was probably some indigestible morsel resolution. And
Yeah.
my body was doing what it was doing. So it sucked. It didn't feel good, but I had enough awareness to go, my body's doing what it needs to do. I don't need to rush to the doctor. I don't need
Yeah.
to rush to take some antibiotics or herbs or whatever. I mean, sure, some stuff can help mitigate and slow down the healing process, which I think can be beneficial at times, but I was able to manage it. It just didn't feel good. Of course, who wants to be on the toilet for 3 days, multiple hours a day? Not ideal. And
Wow.
that kind of knowledge also supported us with our animals, with our dog Rosie. Like we would go away sometimes and then she wouldn't be able to come with us. But then when we'd come back, she would be experiencing sometimes vomiting or diarrhea or something of that nature. And so I'm just like, she'll be fine in 3 days. She'll be
Yeah.
fine in a couple days. And every single time she's fine. Or if
Mm.
she's choosing not to eat, like she'll eat in a couple days. Like, so I'm not projecting the fear and the worry even onto that situation.
Amazing.
And
Yeah.
so then how does then an animal relate to that? Because I
Right.
have no idea of like the
Yeah.
the energetic dynamics between animal and human, even from that standpoint. And you may know better than I, but I feel like there's something there. So if I'm more at peace, if I'm trusting of the body's process, then I think that's just beneficial
Mm.
for all parties involved,
Wow.
in my opinion. So, and there's
That's
just been multiple stories like that over the last, handful of years where there's been something acute, something that's happened, and post resolution, there have been symptoms.
mm.
Even just recently, we in our dining room, we had a frame. Since we moved in, I was going to do an artwork piece, and it's been there for 5 years. Okay, we had people coming over for Christmas, and Sophie goes, maybe this is a good time to actually do it, because I've been telling myself for a while, like, oh, I'll get it done. Fuck, why haven't gotten it done? Oh, I'll get it done. Why have you gotten it done? That kind of thing. And so I did the piece, I hung it up, and then again, within like an hour or two, I'm like noticing my entire body is like sore. And I went, am I
Wow.
just sore because of my posture as I was doing this painting piece? Then it just got worse, and then I kind of collapsed on the couch and like fell asleep, and that night I had shivers and like a fever, and this was right before Christmas. So Christmas Eve morning I finally kind of came out of it and felt better, but it was like a 2.5 days of not feeling well. And so again, the best explanation for me was based on that, not, oh, I must have hugged someone and gotten a microbe from them,
Yeah.
or some other explanation. So again, it's like it's up to each individual to decide what makes most sense for them. And for me, there's just been so many instances where the things I've been navigating and dealing with, there's a reason for it, and my questions are answered through this system of understanding human biology that integrates psyche, that integrates brain, that integrates the body and the organ systems. And so I love the specificity and nuance that provides me.
Mm. Oh,
Anyways,
very cool, man. Thanks
yeah.
for some examples. And yeah, I love what you said about not projecting worry or fear onto your animals. Like the same can be said about our friends or our kids or, our partners. And it's just such a powerful thing to be able to offer that. It seems simple, but I remember when I was out hitchhiking, I was 16 and I had ghosted my parents. I wasn't calling, I was just gone. And my mom it was making her sick, like that she didn't know where I was, that I wasn't communicating. And so she got to the point where she had to let go and let God, is what she called it. And I remember feeling it.
Wow.
It like totally changed my whole life. And I like had to get to a payphone and like call her and like, what happened? Like, thank you. Like, I don't know what happened. I feel all this love. And I remember my dad did the same thing when I was driving with my snowboard boots and accidentally hit the center of between two garage doors at my friend's house. And I like tried to cover it up and pretend it didn't happen. And I was so scared I was going to go to jail or like, I didn't know how much money it would cost. And I was just like 15 or 16. Um, and I remember him telling the parents, don't worry, Joel will do the right thing. I trust Joel to do the right thing. And like when I heard that, it like really helped me to become a good person. Like just having your parents trust in you in these ways and trust in your soul to be okay. And so, yeah, I just love hearing these things. I think they get overlooked how powerful the people that are in our lives and how they project onto us. And then as individuals, if someone is projecting fear or worry, how to not let those projections land.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I know that you help people one-on-one, or you've been a body worker, or besides, are you here for the truth and all that stuff? What kind of support do you offer, and how do you kind of work with people?
Yeah, so my journey has been an interesting one. I think like a lot of us. So yeah, after I left the hotel business and went to Greece and came back, and I made the decision that I wanted to explore acting,
Yeah.
and I was very blessed to have teachers, and again the same teacher I mentioned before, Jason. He introduced me to parts work. And
Mm,
so, he studied with two individuals, Doctors Hal and Sidra Stone. Hal passed away in
mm,
2020, I believe, at the age of 93, but Sidra's still alive. And they developed over like a few decades a body of work called Voice Dialogue, The Psychology of Selves, and the Aware Ego. So he utilized that work in his acting training. And so early on, it was like, okay, you're going to come to acting training with certain blocks and inhibitions and your personality developing however it develops. I mean, we have certain essence. You can bring in astrology and human design and all these things that people have this blueprint. And then on top of that, also there's conditioning from life, from parents, from primary caretakers, So you evolve through life, you evolve through your teens, you get to your 20s or whatever, and you get more into adulthood. And especially someone coming to train as an actor who wants to be able to tap into different aspects of themselves as a vessel to help tell stories.
yeah.
And so yeah, for me, I had to really work through being like a bit of a mama's boy and a people pleaser.
Yeah.
Like I was like a gold medalist at the Olympics of people pleasing, in the sense of really being aware of everyone's needs, growing up in the restaurant business, having a Greek mom, like I was
Yeah.
great at that. And there's a lot of blessings that come from that. You care about other people, you notice things, but if you're imbalanced, if you're over identify with that aspect, there's so much gold that you're missing within you. And so this kind of work really helped me and supported me. And so um, that laid a really strong foundation for my own personal journey of understanding that we do contain this multiplicity within, like the great Walt Whitman quote, it's like, I contain multitudes.
Mm,
And so that provided a lot more self-compassion for me, and
mm,
also took away a lot of projections that I put externally, because I could realize and see myself in other people, like especially some of those aspects of self that we don't want to acknowledge, the darker elements,
mm,
it was like, oh, okay, like I know that part of me. Like, sure, I may have a judgment. And I find that judgments and the people we overvalue can shine a light within us on areas that maybe we've repressed or disowned or haven't developed. Um, and so that kind of work then led me into getting into nutrition. So I
mm,
started learning about health and nutrition from like that angle. Um, but I would say when I first moved to LA around, what is it now, 12 years ago, shortly after, I kind of went on my own little dark night. I met a mentor of mine who was an ex-Navy SEAL, trained in nutritional Chinese medicine, and he was an alternative healing practitioner, a body worker. And, up until that point, a lot of my work was much more intellectual, psychological, psycho-spiritual, I guess, but the physical piece, the soma, was left out of it. And so to meet this person, and that's also how I met my wife, she had trained with him and um, worked with him, going deep into the physical body, like breaking down armoring, getting that blood, that chi, that lymph to flow, those emotions that are stuck and stored in there for them to come out and to experience. That was life transforming. You talk about vitality, like how much is locked up in the body.
mm.
It's like there's a great proverb, I think it's a Chinese proverb around like stagnation equals death, movement is life.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you look at the hinge of a door, if it never opens, go
Mm,
back 10 years later and see what the hinge is like,
right.
and so it's like, well, how are we like relating that to my body? Like, what's stuck? What's stagnant? What can move through me?
Mm,
What experience maybe were certain impulses that I had blocked that get
mm,
stuck and stored in the body? And so, doing that kind of work really had an impact on me as well. And again, obviously led me to my wife. And so yeah, so there's the somatic piece, and then I got into like some more subtle nervous system work, training in a modality called somatic experiencing, which is based on Peter Levine's work.
yeah.
And got really into human design like 10 years ago. So I don't know, in true Gemini fashion, there's just a
Mm,
lot of little things, different things that I've been curious about that have supported me on my journey that I integrate in terms of supporting a person to become the person they were born to be. Like, what is this blueprint? What is this essence within you? Like, if we were to truly know ourselves, to honor ourselves, to live with more courage and heroism, and peel away the layers of the onion, the conditioning that was kind of put on top of that.
yeah.
Some conditioning supports us,
Mm,
in stepping into who we are, but some doesn't. It pulls us further away from this light, this unique essence within us.
yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, if I was doing body work and coaching and human design stuff, and then I met Joel in 2020, beginning of 2021, and that story is pretty cool too, because I kind of started saying it, but I didn't go into it. But my wife and I were invited onto the Unslaved podcast with Michael Tazarian
Mm,
and David Whitehead in 2020. And for me, that was like life changing to some degree, because I had such respect for Michael and David, and I considered Michael like an intellectual mentor of mine over the years, going into his work and his studies. And yeah, also the story of how we got invited was also pretty cool too. Like I had been wanting to reach out to him for years. And this is the
mm,
power of like honoring something within you and taking action and seeing what comes of it. I'd been wanting to reach out to him for years, but I didn't realize I didn't know how. I didn't know
yeah.
what it didn't feel right. Then Sophie was doing her PhD, and she was doing a lot of research on physical touch. And she came across some research around the mother's psychological state in utero and how that impacts child.
Wow.
And so Michael's done a lot of research on like the female psyche and things like that. And I went, wow, this aligns with a lot of stuff that I've heard from Michael. I'm like, well, let me send him a message and say, hey, so I was like, hey, I just want to let you know that you've had a real impact on my life. And, my wife is currently getting her PhD, and she came across some stuff in her studies that align with some of the stuff you do. And we're both body workers. He's a strong advocate of somatic work and like personal healing. And so I just, said a few other things and I sent that email. And then I go to sleep that night. Well, I go to bed that night. And like, of course, the part of me comes in like, oh, who am I? He's not going to reach out to me.
Yeah.
But then Sophie goes, listen, there's this one part of your human design chart that has to do with manifestation. It's very important for you to be specific.
Mm.
So what do you want? And I
Mm.
just looked at her and went, he's going to email me back tomorrow and ask me to come on to Enslaved.
Yeah.
Next day, I get an email from him that says, interesting. Would either one of you like to come on Enslaved to talk about this? And I'm like ecstatic because, someone I respect, a mentor of mine, like wants to have a conversation with me. I was like, this is pretty cool. And this was a really big point in my own journey of really kind of stepping into even my power to some degree. And so, and owning some of the things that I know. And so I responded, like, can we both come on? And he goes, sure, you both can
Cool.
come on.
Mm.
Anyways, fast forward to early 2021. Joel was a fan of Michael's work. He had
Uh-huh.
gone through his mystery school, his taroscopics mystery school,
Cool.
and he came across our episode.
Yeah.
And he hit me up on Instagram to say, hey, I came across your episodes with your wife about awakening somatic intelligence, and they really had an impact on me. And then I looked up who Joel was, and I went, oh, he's like in the Sydney freedom community. He's a conscious hip hop artist. He's into divination work. He wrote a song on vaccines. Uh, and I just hit him up, and we had a quick back and forth. Then we got on Zoom to meet for the first time. I had told him I always wanted to start a podcast. He's like, well, I always wanted to start a podcast. And what's funny is because in my mind, I had the name. It was called The Truth First, but he goes, well, I just bought this blog. It's called Here for the Truth. And I like put out a couple, I don't know, blogs. And I went, I like yours better.
Yeah.
Let's do that. And so
Cool.
1 week later, we got on Zoom and we pressed record. And that
Yeah.
was episode 1. And episode
Wow.
1 was called Walking the Authentic Path. And it was
Mm.
just our version of like, what does it take to take the road less traveled,
Yeah.
to honor yourself, to not betray yourself.
Mm.
And then we did a second episode called Walking the Authentic Path, part 2. And we continued the conversation, and then we realized, okay, like we want to have guests on, and here we are 282 episodes later,
Wow.
4.5, almost 5 years later now. And from that it led to us creating Rise Above the Herd, which is our group coaching program. And so
Cool.
we started that as a live program.
Mm-hmm.
So we did 12 live cohorts of that. And again, that program, Rise Above the Herd, and it's like there are all types of herds, even in the truther community, even in the alternative world. Like it's like, where are you not thinking for yourself? Where are you just outsourcing your own authority?
Yeah.
And we integrated something that I think is very grounded and very practical to support people on that journey that brings in stuff that has impacted him and me. So like your initial question is like, how do you help people? I'm telling you on this whole kind of journey of what led me to
Mm-hmm.
now with Joel, what we've built and what we've created. And so it's like for people to really understand the subtle ways that groupthink and crowd psychology, you know, impacts their thinking and their consciousness.
Yeah.
And then also even the ways like, the spiritual community, I put that in quotes, like the new age world and some of this stuff that takes us away from ourselves and like has a lot of spiritual bypassing and love and light, and to realize like that's taking you away from the depth and of your humanity and the complexity of your humanity. And of course, parts work plays a role in that because I feel like it's important. And just really understanding what does it mean to honor the self, to honor yourself, and to have self-esteem. Like
Mm,
there's the great phrase by Nathaniel Brandon, known as the father of self-esteem. It's like self-concept is destiny. So how
mm,
you feel about you, how you relate to you impacts everything,
mm,
impacts the relationships you get into, impacts the work you do, impacts how you move through the world. And so, how can you build and cultivate healthy self-esteem that's gonna allow you to have the difficult conversations, that's gonna allow you to leave the dead-end job that you're at, that's gonna allow you to stand up for yourself in relationship, in partnership, or to even maybe leave a partnership,
yeah.
that kind of thing. And ultimately, like, how does one live a heroic life, a purposeful life, to say no to the status quo, the external ones, the internal ones, and to realize what is possible. What is
Mm,
possible when you truly know yourself, know what you value, understand your unique gifts, these gifts from God, these things that are yours. And then
mm,
how do you then give that to the world and bring that into the world and inspire and be of service? And then come into community from that place. Hey,
yeah.
I don't need to sacrifice who I am in order to get along in this community. How can we come together where we honor one another, honor the gifts of each other, and build something powerful and magical from that place, as opposed to, I created the community, I'm in charge, everyone
Mm,
must behave the way I do. Now, I'm not saying there isn't hierarchy in some ways, like nature has hierarchy, but generally speaking, it's just like, yeah, just how can you become the most badass, healthy, vital, vibrant individual that you can be, so you can live an amazing life and have
mm,
love in your life, to receive love, to give love, to remove the barriers from giving and receiving love, and make magic happen and create heaven on earth. So I'll
mm.
end there.
Yeah, wow. Really cool, man. Powerful. Um, yeah, dude. So do you offer one-on-one sessions? Do you do human design readings? Do you continue that work?
So pretty much for the last couple of years, all the work that I've been offering has been through our containers that we have.
Got it.
Joel and I, sometimes we do take on private coaching clients. And of course, it's a different level of investment when you're working one-on-one with people, because that's another like mission of Joel and myself, is like, we want to be able to provide powerful, accessible coaching to more and more people, where they don't have to like pay
Yeah.
15,000, 20, 30, $40,000, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just something that's important to me. Now, if someone wants to work one on one or one on two, yeah, there's going to be more of an investment. But I'm not really doing as much body work that I was.
Yeah.
Occasionally, I have had clients, even in the last couple of years, that would come up to Topanga
Mm,
and do the work, because it's really deep and intense work. It's not. I think it's a little. Yeah, it's a unique form of body work. But generally speaking, it's just what Joel and I are building.
yeah.
We're building, yeah, the podcast and the community and our flagship program, which is Rise Above the Herd, that is now fully automated. So you can go on this program at your own pace. It's curated,
Yep.
self-guided. Obviously, you have it for life, but it follows like a 10-week format, pretty
Cool.
intensive 10-week format. And we've had some pretty amazing feedback from people that have been part of the live cohort and people that have gone through the 10-week program. So in my mind, if you're willing to put in the work, if you're
Yep.
willing to sit down, like take in the information, the knowledge, do the actions, like go on this inner adventure of
Hmm.
really getting to know yourself on such a deep level, there is magic on the other side of it. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Like, that's the thing. Like, it's some of this stuff, it's an initiation. It's an initiation to face the ways you've been betraying yourself over the years. And with that comes pain that you have to experience.
Mm,
Um,
for sure.
and because it's like, do I think pain is required to evolve? I don't think it's required, but I think it's an ingredient in a lot of situations. And because I've had those experiences in my life, like some of the
Mm,
most evolutionary moments or periods of my life, came during and after like pretty huge moments, whether it's a breakup or moving or,
hmm.
dissolving a friendship or changing careers. Uh, but yeah,
Mm.
so
Wow.
hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, dude. No, it's cool, man. It's yeah, I tell people with with the training that I offer, it's not a matter of whether it works or not, it's whether you follow through. and there's just going to be people that resistant to that. It puts them in charge of their life instead of having the victim consciousness of something to blame. And so they tend to hide or, avoid. And so it's great to hear that you recognize that you've created something of value, that you're willing, to speak to it in a way that isn't egotistical, but is confident, and you're alive and you're lit up, and therefore, you're modeling that for others and giving people permission to do that. Is this something, do you recognize that in human design it makes sense that you landed in sort of this career path that you're on? Are there indications in your design chart?
Everything in human design, even another system I'm into, which is based on the playing cards. You can see right back behind me is the King of Clubs. Yeah, it all relates in terms of, I mean, my life theme in human design, also known as the incarnation cross, is the left angle cross of education. So
Mm,
I'm here to really inspire people that education is their birthright, that they can see beyond the limitations, things that have been projected onto them by society and culture, and to realize that they can open their mind and their heart. It's not just a
mm,
mental thing, and their heart, by but through knowledge, through knowledge and the application of knowledge.
mm,
And then again, this card here relates to knowledge as well and being a thought leader. But it's also, it's with great power comes great responsibility. And so I've shied away from that in my life, even though maybe people and teachers would say, oh my God, you're smart, or you're this, or you're that. It's like, oh no, whatever, okay. And so it's been my own journey over especially the last like 10, 15 years to really like own some of the things that I've done and experienced, and still remain humble to the fact like there's so much I don't know.
mm,
And there's like a small piece of the puzzle that I'm just doing and I'm giving. And it's like and what I love about this, like there are going to be people that are drawn to what Joel and I
mm.
do. And there are going to be people who are like, nah. But then there are going to be people like, yo, Joel Schaefer, oh my God, working with Joel was like so deep and so amazing. And so it's like, I love that. I love that about the world and the personal development realm. And like I think what we tried to create with Rise of the Herd is something that's like practical and grounded, which relates to my human design as a 5-1. It's like the one line wants to build a secure foundation of knowledge, um, or a skill set, and then
Mhm.
universalize that and provide practical solutions for whoever, and so yeah, I think it's a good. I think Rise Above the Herd meets you where you're at. And what I've really enjoyed about it is that there are people that are newer in their personal development journey
Yeah.
that have gotten value from it. But then there are people who have been in personal development for a long time, who've studied like Carl Jung, who've studied philosophy, and they've gotten value from it because this is the thing too. Knowledge is one thing, but the
Mm.
person delivering the knowledge has its own element to it. And
Yeah.
I say this often, you and I could read the same book, memorize the same book, and even share the same analysis. But you sharing it versus me sharing it is also going to be its own flavor and how
Mm.
that lands and how that inspires. And so yeah. Anyways, as you can tell, I'm proud of what we've built and what we've created.
Awesome.
And I think it really can help people kind of get out of like whatever area of stuckness that they may be in their life. If they kind of hit a little,
Hmm.
roadblock, that it's like a little the fuel and the fire to just go, okay, what's the next stage of my evolution? Boom. It's not going to solve all your problems, all the
Yeah. Yeah.
challenges. It's
Yeah.
just a step in the right direction. And, when you build something and you create something, sure, you have self belief,
Yeah.
but until you get feedback from your environment, you
Yeah.
don't know. So
Right.
there's times where I go, wow, this is like people are really being impacted by this. Like people
Yeah.
are like leaving relationships, going into new jobs afterwards, really standing up for themselves in new ways.
Mm.
And yeah, it's exciting to see that even with the podcast. Like again, back to like knowledge. Like we love to have these conversations in a whole range of subjects.
Yeah.
And then anyone who chooses to listen, they can feel what they're drawn to or not. And like we've gotten emails from people that go, hey, I just came across your podcast 3 months ago and I've binged like 100 episodes
Yeah.
and my life is absolutely changed. And
Yeah.
so even then, you don't have to pay
Yeah.
$300, $500, $1,000, $10,000 for coaching. Sometimes you do,
Sure.
but there is so much wisdom out there
Mhm.
that if you consciously engage with it
Mm.
and take the time to self-reflect and then to honor your intuition of like, oh, what am I drawn to next? Oh, let me pick up that book. Oh, let me go have the conversation with that person.
Mm.
It's like that's when the magic happens because I can only relate it back to my life. Like
Yeah.
those moments where you just make a decision and then that leads to the next thing, that leads to the next thing, that leads to the next thing. And then you're like, your life 15 years later, like you're like, how did that happen? And then you're trying to
Mhm.
trace it. And you're like, well, when you honor your intuition, when you answer that inner calling,
Mm.
that is when the magic of life, or in this system, when you play your cards right, magic happens. It's
Mm.
funny that
Mm.
like cards are associated with magic, and
Yeah.
also the symbols and the numbers in there have something to say from a much more esoteric standpoint. So,
Wow.
anyways, while I'm not a dogmatist when it comes to human design or these other systems, there are people who don't know much about this stuff and have lived amazing, awesome
Sure.
lives. That
Yeah.
said, they are tools,
Yeah.
and if it resonates, it resonates.
Mm.
So,
Amazing. Well, I love what you said about it. Like, so I have had human design readings multiple times in my life and it never clicked. But then I met this woman, Isabella, who's my mentor currently. And when she gave me the reading, it just all lit up because it had to do with her.
mhm.
Like her, she's embodying some position of awareness that makes it possible for it to transmit and for me to finally come to terms with how potent it is to work with. And as I go through her course and work with her one-on-one, and she's just pointing out that I've already discovered my design. I didn't know about it, but I was already utilizing like the areas of my throat chakra, the specific numbers,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
she's like pointing out like and anyways, it's just changed my life because whether the charts and the system is still accurate to this day, a lot of people say tropical astrology doesn't
Mhm,
translate
mhm.
anymore, and they're saying now we have cosmic human design, or they're trying to, but I think systems are designed to be worked with based on the attention we give them. The cards that you work with, the numerology, like all that stuff it's enough attention is being given to it that it becomes magic in that we're willing to believe or suspend judgment and be open to the idea that divination is real,
Yeah.
and so just it has to do with the person to me more than the system. And there's all kinds of really intense shamanic divination practices that has helped me to understand that we are psychic, we are telepathic, we can remote view, we can do all kinds of strange, one art wouldn't be considered typical. But I think the veil is lifting, and more people that have embodied and walked through the fire, so to speak, to understand how to utilize knowledge in a way that is energizing and productive, So I'm very passionate about her offering, and really she's helping me to come out of like any limitations around what I'm able to do as an artist or as a
Mhm.
creative, So I'm coming up against uh my social wounding around you know needing to over polish or overthink or present myself in a way that isn't as vulnerable or as authentic as what would be helpful. And so she sort of gives me these challenges every week, like how to utilize my human design in a way to move in a deeper direction, committing to my creative side. And it's just been super simple, almost too simple. Like I think it gets overlooked how profound this stuff can be.
Dude, you hit the nail on the head for me. Like, and I am by far not the world's foremost expert in human design. It is a system, a tool that I got exposed to a while ago, and then I kind of went through the experiment of just seeing what works. Like the
Yeah.
simplicity of strategy and authority. The
Hmm.
simplicity of that was what I like human design. And then I realized too when I first came across, I'm like, oh well, that's kind of how I made decisions already. Like
Yeah.
I got this hit, but went, wait, I can't. Let me just wait a little bit. Let me wait
Yeah.
and just see how things land when I kind of drop into some more clarity. And And then, but then to realize that, to be affirmed something that we're already doing, I think allows that belief you talk about to you stake your flag in the ground even more
Mm,
of this unique expression of the divine that you are. Like
mm,
these are my strengths. This is how I can move forward in the world. And it's like you don't need to be dogmatic about it. Like you learn this stuff and then you just live your life.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And yeah, like how you deliver it is important. Like I've had people come to me with a reading, like, oh, I've had a reading or two before, but like I don't know, you simplify it. I just want to keep it simple and basic.
yeah,
You can get really esoteric and really out there. And I sometimes just like hammer home like strategy and authority in a simple
yeah.
way, or some of the conditioning around the different centers.
Mm,
But yeah, it's just again, when it comes to coming across knowledge and like different systems, for me, the proof is in the pudding. If I come across something and it resonates and I
yeah,
integrate it and I apply it and like my life becomes, I don't know, better. And by better, I don't mean just feeling good because sometimes you have to go through something to get to the next step. But like
yeah.
I look back and I go, all right, well, let me just keep rolling with this. And then you get
Mm,
enough feedback from people who go, wow, this really supported me. This really helped me. And then of course, I want to keep the humility around like it's knowledge that
mm,
somehow came before us and utilize it or not. It's not the end of the world, but it can support you, especially if you're
mm,
having certain challenges or difficulties.
mm,
So yeah, so it's a cool system. And I go, it's becoming more and more popular at this time. And then I question that, like, well, why? Why is
mm,
that? Like,
mm,
we are moving towards a more individualistic age. And I don't mean
mm.
individualistic age as if like lone wolf, fuck everyone, but more what we're talking about here,
Yeah,
becoming the author of your life,
yeah.
moving away from the collective and the tribal
Mm,
and coming into this place where we honor ourselves, then come together, like I mentioned before. And so,
mm,
wow, here is a system that's known as the science of differentiation. Like, how
mm,
can you also differentiate this unique being that you are and to own that and to accept that on a deeper level? And then how is that going to impact relationships and your connection to community? So
mm.
I know that's me just kind of hypothesizing on the value of it and why it's gaining more popularity now. Um, but
Yeah, I
yeah,
love it.
yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, and then what you said about, you have a vibe about like it not taking it too seriously because I've noticed with human design some people are like, okay, I'm a projector so I have to do it like this and like,
Yeah,
oh my
yeah, yeah,
God, and then they're like it can cause a lot of complication because they've been operating from a place that's been different and now they're afraid to go back to that. And so Isabella's been like, oh, it's okay, like because I was like it's hard for me to have a roommate. I keep leaving the house because I'm used to like being, in
mm-hmm.
a private. And and then in my human design, it represents that it's best for me to live alone. But that doesn't mean I have to move out.
Mm-hmm.
I can still adapt and we don't have to take this stuff so seriously. And so it's good to be able to bring the humor into it and just be open to all the different processes of fear that can show up inside of systems.
Yeah, dude, I love that you said a phrase or a term that's really near and dear to my heart, humor. Like
Hmm.
I don't know, I get it from my dad or maybe my
Yeah.
astrology, but like humor has played such a role in my life, in my personal development journey.
Yeah.
Because when you go on a process of, let's say, delving deep within yourself, and working through stuff and coming face to face with some shit that happened, it's deep. And again, thinking about even the parts work, like the duality that like, there's also another side that's like the lightness and the playfulness and the humor. And so
Yeah.
I want to balance the depth and the intensity and the like, oh, I gotta do healing work and I'm so traumatized and also like just like what the fuck is this? We have no idea what the hell we're doing here. We're humans.
Love
My hands are moving right now. Like it's silly. It's crazy. Like,
it.
and I think that's beneficial, and I've gotten feedback for especially people that are in our world and our community, like bringing that type of humor is something that I think people are drawn to. So yeah, humor's important, man.
For
Humor.
sure, yeah. Yeah, no, laughter saved my life. I wasn't laughing for a certain point in my life when I was really stressed out and then I met this dude that just was larger than life and just cracked me up. And we just ventured together. And I'm still not as funny as I was when I was hanging out with him because it like rubbed off and I miss him. But, he got into cocaine and it's like, oh, fuck, gone. But, I knew that. I knew he was going to go. He was too crazy to not get spun out. So I really cherished the time that I had with him. Like and that's something I really am thankful for that I'm always been psychic enough to not take anything for granted, that everything's constantly moving and changing. And it just helps me to just appreciate the moment that I'm in. And but yeah, man, just to Derek for cracking me up and freeing me from my seriousness. Some people have no idea how powerful of a healer they are just by being funny, by being able to crack jokes and to have that sharp wit. It's amazing.
Yeah, man. And it's like, let's say we're someone who doesn't hold a certain quality because, and then we look at someone like, oh my God, you're so funny, or you're so this, or you're so that. And it's like, we don't need to become that. But
Yeah,
what if we took a homeopathic dose of
yeah,
that and integrated into our life?
exactly.
So like, I remember having going on a workshop. Doctors Hal and Sidra Stone, they used to do week-long retreats at their place in Mendocino County. And somehow I went to one. It was like me and like 15 psychologists, and I was like a 30-year-old like actor training. But because my teacher trained in it, there were people that were senior teachers of that work that did work with our acting community. Anyways, so we were talking about dreams,
Mhm.
and they have a kind of simple, practical way of working with dreams. How the different images and the people that come into your dreams represent aspects of you,
Mhm.
qualities within you. So this one woman, she was probably in her 50s. She was like, I just had a dream about Hitler, And so Hitler in the collective consciousness represents something. Like
Yeah.
it's like an archetype almost what Hitler is. So I remember Hal going, well, interesting, well, if you took that Hitler energy and like chopped it up into a bunch of pieces and put it in a big stock pot and cooked it down and boiled it down to this little amount of liquid, and then took like one of those little droppers, and then just squeezed a few drops into it and put it under your tongue. How would that help your life? And
Oh,
she goes immediately, well, I would speak my mind more. I'd be able to set boundaries. I'd be able to, you know
yeah.
what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
not like you have to become whatever
Yeah.
this archetype is, but how can you integrate the healthy elements of it
Yeah.
in your life? Just
No.
even like, bring it away from like the specificity of Hitler. Let's just talk about anger.
Yeah.
Like that quality, like so many people are so disconnected to that vital
Mm.
life force of anger, of healthy aggression.
Yeah.
And like, if you were to, you don't need to be someone who punches people and abuses people, but what if you had a homeopathic dose of that? Would you
Yeah.
be able to speak to someone and go, you will not speak to me this way? I do not accept it,
Yes.
as opposed to like contracting in, oh, I don't want to disturb
Mm.
the peace. Oh, I don't want to cause an issue. Oh, they won't like me.
Hmm.
And we're almost living on one leg as opposed to two legs,
Yeah.
grounded,
Yeah.
standing between the tension of opposites, understanding that we have this there's this dualistic nature to reality and within our psyches.
Yeah.
And so I think part of like personal development work, and you hear it all the time, oh, integration and wholeness. What does that mean? It's like taking the foundational essence and blueprint of who you are, yes, and understanding the complexity of being human and having
Hmm.
access. I kind of relate it to like an orchestra. Like you have the conductor, it's like this center point within you. But then
Hmm.
like a full orchestra has all these different instruments. And there's a time and a place to play the different instruments. But for a lot of people, they're operating with like maybe one or two instruments, like the
Yeah.
rigidity within themselves. They don't have the expansiveness and the integration to be able to kind of choose. Different
Hmm.
situations call for different aspects of self. How I'm speaking to a little old lady on a park bench
Yeah.
is probably going to be different than if someone was trying to rob me and my wife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, do I have the capacity
Yeah.
to dance in
Hmm.
those different situations? And I find that the most successful people, and by success, I don't mean just financial, but
Yeah.
in life, they're individuals that like can put
Mhm.
their arms around these different aspects of self, even the ones that they like, oh shit, like, I was sharing it on a recent podcast. It's like being in touch with the part that can lie, cheat,
Yeah.
steal. Like, I don't want to do those things, but I could have the embodied experience and knowing that I'm capable of those things.
Mhm. Mhm. Wow.
So,
Thank you, man. Yeah, yeah. No, knowledge of self, right? And if we don't know ourself, if we don't tap into these parts that have developed bitterness or resentment or any unresolved wounding or anger, that how do we get to those areas so that we're not bypassing and then really own our story and get to know the parts of us that are still unresolved. And that humility is what's key to recognizing that the work is ongoing, that there's just going to be constant new discoveries of things. And as we get, like, honestly, with my marriage, it wasn't until it started to heal that we realized how dysfunctional had been
mm,
all along. Like it was too much stress to be able to even process what we were inside of. But then, so the last year was the best year, which people would think, well, what? Like, how does that work?
mm,
It's just like we are very strange creatures and we're capable of suffering for long periods of time and just pointing at everyone else saying, well, they must be an egomaniac if they're pretending to be happy or like making stories up around what you see in the world so it keeps your story protected. And like honestly, it took like mushrooms for me to finally say things to myself that I couldn't admit to without that extra sort of uncomfortable transition from my self-deception
mm-hmm.
to what was really needed to move through me. And it was just such a healing experience just to have that truth serum, happen in that way. And so a lot of what I do with people is just help them to get honest with where they're at. Because a lot of
Yeah.
people are trying to convince themselves that they've done all this work and then they don't want to admit to the feelings they're still having that are unresolved because it represents not having done the work and they're lying to themselves and to me and to everyone around them. And then that ends up keeping them from then they're spinning their wheels their whole life trying to prove something that isn't actual. And it's so healing to be able to just drop into reality.
Dude, you hit the nail on the head there. And like, it just makes me think of even the name of our podcast, like Here for the Truth. Like, our early episodes, it wasn't like, oh, what's the truth of the world and the
Yeah.
conspiracy? It was like, what is the truth within? And do
Yeah.
you have the capacity for truth?
Mm.
So in one way, it's like what we're trying to do in our own unique way is support people to build greater capacity for truth within themselves so they can come to these realizations and so they can not run and hide and so that they can have the difficult conversations that need to have, and
Yes.
it's scary, man, to certain parts, dude. Especially like you have so many things wrapped up into a life, into relationships, and it's it's hard, man. It's hard.
Yeah.
But it's the mission of being human,
Yeah.
and moving through life and hopefully going towards more fulfillment and satisfaction and presence and love in one's life is you kind of have to go on this journey.
Yeah. And, Carlos Castaneda said the world will teach you everything you need to know. You go out and you get a job and how you react to that person talking down to you, or you go out on the highway in LA and somebody
Mm-hmm.
cuts you off, and they almost killed you. Like road rage, I've seen the
Mm-hmm.
craziest shit happen with people that don't know themselves, and then they put themselves and everyone in danger because they had no idea how easily triggered they would be by, some crazy driver. So it's like the world is offering us a constant reflection of where we're at. But if we're pointing the finger outward, then we're missing out on the teaching, which is like direct. So it's just all you have to do is walk out your front door essentially in order to learn, or even just sit inside of your boredom and not distract yourself. Like there's so much intensity just in coming out of distraction if possible, but also being able to love yourself when you are distracting yourself. right? So this whole shame and guilt that shows up inside of people that are trying to become spiritual or awakened, then it's like all these really difficult energetics play into that, and it's hard to just, I really appreciate like what Jesse Elder said on your show. It's just like there is a way to just completely accept yourself as you are. But that requires absolute and total honesty and not, trying to cover up anything at all. So yeah, really powerful way you've shared it, man.
Yeah, man, you as well. And I'm happy that you bring up Jesse Elder in that podcast. I mean, our audience loved that podcast, and I got a lot of respect for him. Very inspiring as well. And then I love that you brought up road rage because that was the thing for me. Like, you repress anger,
Yeah.
it's going to often come out in
Yeah.
those instances. And once you build a healthy relationship to anger and build more
Mhm.
capacity within your nervous system, you can have the impulse, but then do you act on the
Yeah.
impulse?
Yeah.
Like I've had multiple situations in my life. One in New York City years ago, 15 years ago, I was walking with an ex-girlfriend of mine and a cab driver. We had the right of way on the signal, and a cab driver made a right turn and almost hit us.
Hmm.
Now, part of it is like protective mode, like, but the vulnerability is I could have died. My girlfriend could have died. And so,
Yeah.
but like my response wasn't the most appropriate. I went to the door of the cab driver, pulled it open, and was ready to pull him out
Yeah.
until I like saw the look of terror on his face, and then was like, "Whoa, that no." But it was just like, and
Yeah.
even when I moved to LA, like getting cut off, like I just like these 3-4 minute like tirades of just like, I need to look at your face, I need to drive by you,
Right.
and like, and so it's interesting, and it's great to see the journey
Yeah.
I've gone on in relationship to that. And there's times where like something happens and I don't want to repress my anger. So there's
Yeah.
different tools and experience and exercises I can do where it's like I squeeze the steering wheel, I let out like a grunt, like just letting out that I want to feel the intensity, and then it dissipates. It just
Yeah.
dissipates, and I'm like, okay, I'm on my way.
Yeah.
And several months ago, I'm driving out of my place, kind of where we went hiking when we walked up to the dirt road,
Yeah.
and someone was behind me. I made a left turn, and then they tried to pass me on the right in a big white truck and then cut me off. And the back left of their truck hit the front right of my car and ripped off the whole right side. And
Yeah.
it got stuck into their thing. I jump out of the car to assess the damage, and the person didn't stop. So, like, there's that part that came in right away. Oh, you will not, this injustice that you just committed, you're not going to
Yeah.
get away with it. Meanwhile, people hike on that road, walk their dogs. And so he's booking it in this large white GMC Sierra, and he's booking it. And I'm trying to keep up. And I'm also like, there's people around.
Yeah.
But the mental noise is like, I'm going to fuck this motherfucker up, like working through it. How dare you do that? Like
Yeah.
on a dirt road, you're trying to pass me on the right. And so finally we get to the end, the intersection of like, I guess Mulholland and Topanga,
Yeah.
and he's there in front of me and I get behind him. But at that moment, there was some dissipation. And so
Hmm.
even though a part of me wanted to get out, go to his car, I've seen, and I'm thankful for this, I've seen enough like Instagram pages, like there's certain people I follow that like post videos of like what's the word I'm thinking of, like de-escalation and like road rage incidents, that
Yeah.
they were like flashing in my head. And I went, I have no idea who this person is.
Mm.
He's willing to get into an accident with me
Mm.
and flee the scene of a crime. I literally left the house to go get gas for a wood chipper. And so I just kind of dropped into my body and I went, I don't need to be right. I don't need to go out this. I just opened up my center console. There was a pen and one of the Here for the Truth stickers on the back. I wrote down his license plate,
There you go.
and then like he went straight, and then I took a right turn, got gas, came back, etc. And I mean, he ended up not having insurance, so they were able to find it. That's why he fled. He didn't have insurance. So,
Yeah.
anyways, but I can think of like worst case scenario. Like my wife, I say goodbye to my wife and I leave to get gas. And then what? She gets a call that I got shot, because that
Right.
shit happens all the time.
Yeah.
So it's like the ability to just
Mm.
not act and react saves lives. Just
No,
see, I mean, we
man.
just see it all around us. People that are behaving unconsciously, that like are completely dysregulated. They might not even be bad people. They might
Right.
just be in a situation where like their anger got the best of them and they just happen to have a weapon, and
Mm.
because whatever, they're protecting themselves, and then they use it, and it's like you're going to prison for life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Totally.
so,
Wow.
anyways, it's just, it was cool to see that. And then like my wife afterwards, when I share the story, she's like, I'm really happy, because she knows me. She knows I can get a little aggro at
Yeah.
times. You know, I don't know if
Yeah.
it's the Jersey Greek in me,
Yeah.
but she's like, thank you for not going up to that. And
Right.
I felt thankful,
Mm.
because you never know. So anyways, road rage is like, all that to say, I agree with you. Reality has a way of just signaling to us
Yeah.
like where we're at,
Mm.
and what work needs to be done in our lives that continues on. And it's
Hmm.
like we don't just get to this point and go, oh, now I have it all. I have all
Yeah.
the answers. Now I'm gonna tell everyone that I have all the answers, and I want people to project onto me that I'm like this guru. Like,
Yeah.
I'm 45 years old now. I'm
Yeah.
not even a parent, even though I want to be a parent. So like I can share what I can share to the degree I can, but like I'm going to face new challenges being a parent. I'm going to like, what
For
happens when
sure.
you're 70 or 80? What happens?
Yeah.
Like, I think about my dad, like his
Mm.
last few months of life, knowing that mortality was that his life is going to end. That's a
Yeah.
whole period that you're going to have to face and deal with, that none of us have any real understanding. Maybe some people who are shamanic and have died and have done stuff, sure. But generally speaking, I don't know what it's like to be 80 years old. I don't know what
Yeah.
it's like to be 90. I don't know what it's like to like, have multiple kids that are dealing with shit.
Yeah.
So, and for me, that's exciting. Like, wow, I
Yeah.
get to be on Earth, whatever this place
Right.
is. I
Yeah.
get to be human. I get to experience the highs and the lows. Like, that's what being human's about. Like, if I didn't want to, then I shouldn't be here. Or I can
Yeah.
go dissolve into the oneness and be like, whatever. But no, I'm here on Earth. I'm dealing with this,
Mm.
relationships to myself, relationship to others, navigating that complexity. And like I make it a point to fall in love with that process to the way I do, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know, some people might think I'm weird, but whatever. Like I love being human. I don't want to
Yeah.
not be human.
Totally, man. Yay. Good for you, dude. It's so well said and so inspiring because yeah, a lot of the spiritual teachings are about ascending. And I think people end up getting sick because they're actually trying to die. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like in a sense, they're trying to leave this place. And like, so Toltecs are really into going into the earth and like descending into the experience of just being here. Like Carlos Castaneda, he went into all these other worlds that his teachers helped him visit. But in the end, he said there's nothing like just being present here. You know, so it sounds all grandiose to be able to see these other layers of the onion. But like we're in the most magical layer regard like they're all magical. The fact that we exist is a miracle. You know, when and I think, you know, what you said reminded me like if you don't know how to move these anger through your body, then you might do something that's very dangerous to yourself and others. So I was really fortunate to work in construction because you can just yell the word fuck as loud as you want at any point in the day out on the job site. And it's so healing
I know.
to not have to, you know, be anything other than what you are. So I still get totally frustrated in challenge like mechanic, like doing mechanical work or doing carpentry where it's not going right, you know, and like, but I have the ability to move that through my body so that I don't end up taking it out on my kids or somebody else or kick the dog or whatever it is that people do. But that's a powerful story, man. I mean, catch yourself and you know that's what the recapitulation helps people is that it gives you that extra second to, you know, really consider the implications of what you're about to do. And that's a level of impeccability. It's this awareness that kicks in and you start to really value life to the point that you're not willing to risk it over some silly thing like a vehicle or a fender or whatever it is. It's so not that of value in comparison to our health. And or even just to the dysregulated nervous system you could get from getting into an argument with that guy. like that could have thrown off your whole week, even if
Oh
you
yeah.
didn't get shot.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Dude, I love what you said. I had to look up real quick one of my favorite quotes because I didn't want to butcher it. And it's something I've used even with the body work I did, and the nervous system work. And it's a Viktor Frankl quote. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom.
Yeah.
And so it's like that, like 0.3 seconds extra could be the difference between like slapping your partner in the face or not, or like injuring someone or saying the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time. And so it really is. It's like we're constantly being impacted by stimuli,
Hmm.
but then how are we responding?
Yeah.
And it's like when you look at your life, again, it's like how many opportunities to respond are there in a single day? And how are you responding? How many decisions are you making in a day? And it's like, again, outside of things out that aren't in your control,
Yeah.
who you're born to, the time period you're born to, the country you're born to, and a whole host of other things. Like on some level, your life is like this accumulation of all these responses and all these choices.
Hmm.
And so, like, if you can build capacity and make better decisions and not respond inappropriately and respond more appropriately, you're gonna. That's reality creation.
Yeah.
You want to talk about manifestation and reality creation? It's like being in tune with reality and truth and your inner world and responding in a much more healthy way. And like your relationships are going to improve, the work you do is going to improve, the way people see you is going to improve. And then, like, all of a sudden, your life turns out a certain way, and you're like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Mm.
And I get it. Many of us are on our own path, so one path doesn't look the same. But there are some general things that I think if we apply them, we're going to see shifts and changes in our lives.
Yeah, dude.
And
That's
I can only speak from personal experience and from what I've witnessed with people that I've worked with over the years and just what I hear, when I hear
yeah.
people talk.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like there's a magical feedback. Your world becomes a reflection of you. And then people might, well, you were born with money and oh, you had good parents, or whatever, but like everyone's contract, I think, is specific to their soul, and it's
Mm.
happening for you as a means for you to potentially evolve. And so, it's just life is a real gift, and I think for the most part people take life for granted. They don't appreciate how incredible it is just to be here. To me, it's a miracle that we
Dude,
exist. Like, how could we ask for more?
bro, dude, I mean, that word, it is such a miracle, man. What did it take for us to be here? Like, if we really sit and think about it, and we go back generation and generation and generation and generation, like there was that one meme infographic, ancestral mathematics, that was
Mm,
going around, and it was like nine
yeah.
generations back, there's like 4,000 ancestors. Like, so think of all of them. Like, we're sitting here talking about our lives, okay?
Yeah.
Think about all those people, all
Yeah.
those responses, all those choices that they all made. That it
Right?
got to this point where our mom met our dad, and our dad did something to our mom, and there was a pregnancy, and then we
Yeah.
came out.
Yeah.
Like, just sitting and thinking of that, how
Oh,
can you not live in awe? Like, I'm just
exactly.
like, that is wild, wild. And because it's a gift, I don't want to quote unquote waste it. I
Yeah.
want to make the most of it as best as I can.
Oh, beautiful.
Like, man, it's
Hmm. Yeah. Thank you, man. Wow. What a
yeah,
good
it's
talk.
it's it's yeah, great talk, man. I just value, honor you, respect you. I'm so happy that our paths crossed, and I'm happy that we've had a chance to connect more deeply, and that we live in close vicinity to each other now, which
Yeah,
is pretty
dude.
awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, I just especially when you look at the world and you look at the things that are going on, like I
Mm.
understand there's stuff happening,
Mm.
but that's not my reality.
Yes.
Like it's like I'm seeing on Facebook or Instagram, like, this is the worst thing ever. My life is the worst ever. And people are, and I go, okay. And I want to have compassion, but I'm like, well, I don't know. My life is like the best it's ever been,
Yeah.
and I'm not sitting here saying that just to be like, it just feels like there's something about my reality and what I'm what I'm giving attention to.
Yes.
You know, like Tom Barnett always talks about an offer. You know, everything's an offer. You
Mm.
know, so where are you putting your attention? What are you saying yes to? And like,
Mm.
I don't know, I'm trying to say yes to things that are filled with more joy and love and harmony and peace and presence. Doesn't mean I completely stick my head in the sand. Like, I like to still like understand things that are happening, but am I going to get completely lost in it? I'm going to sit here and talk 24/7 about the Epstein files.
Right.
Like, I just like, okay, cool. I think many of us have known that some dark shit happens in the corridors of power and has been happening for millennia upon millennia.
Yeah.
Okay, like I'm gonna go hang out in my garden with my cats.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
You know, and like, cool, like, am I privileged to some degree? Sure, but like what you said before, people, they go, well, you have money. Okay, great. I could point to about 5,000 people that had money and like died of an overdose or
Yeah.
like didn't do anything with their life, whatever that means. So
Yeah.
it's like you can't just paint everyone with the same brush. There are people with
Exactly.
no money and their life did something. There are people who have been gone through the most extreme forms of trauma and they found ways to heal and redeem themselves. There are people who haven't been that traumatized and maybe like, you know, they're like they feel lost and complacent. And so it's like you're gonna sit there and compare and contrast. It's wasted time that
Yes.
you can utilize that time to really look in the mirror, things that you were saying earlier, and to sit with yourself and ask yourself the question, how and where have am I and have I been bullshitting myself?
Yes. Oh.
Like, stop bullshitting yourself. Just just realize
Mm.
that you have been and just go, okay, I've been lying to myself. This isn't what I want to do. This isn't who I want to be with. Like, I hate my fucking job. Like, what am I doing? I married this person, whatever. Like, whatever it is,
Yeah.
feel feel the reality of your situation because that truth is going to be the stepping stone and the motivation and the inspiration for the next thing. But if you're consistently bypassing that because you're smoking weed all the time, which pushes shit down, you're drinking all the time, you're jerking off all the time, or whatever, just insert any other
Yeah.
distraction. Like, it's almost like you can't that truth can't rise up to the surface to be faced.
Yeah, bro. Amazing. So glad the community that we walk in, it has your voice in it, because a lot of people are missing the simplicity of that and are trying to pay attention to all the information out there. And then that keeps them from being able to just really follow their heart and take care of themselves. And or they become wounded healers trying to save people without taking care of themselves, and then they can justify the excessive cannabis use or whatever it is because, well, I'm of service, I'm doing so much for everyone else, and so all these stories that just aren't authentic. So what you're
Mm-hmm.
speaking to is becoming authentic,
Yeah,
and that is the greatest currency I think anyone can give.
100%, man. Authenticity within the complexity, honoring the complexity. You know what I mean? Like, I
Mm,
mean, what else is there? Like, again, it's like we talk about spirituality. What's more spiritual than becoming
mm,
you, becoming
yeah,
who you were literally born to be, like really honoring that. And again, I find that people who don't truly know what they value, maybe what their purpose is, who they are, they're much more likely to get sucked into the current thing, the current event, and then to try to get purpose from that because it's
yeah,
like, I know things. Now I could share things. And I'm not against like everyone do your thing, figure it out. Okay.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
some people are born to be the ones that are sharing this stuff. But
yeah,
again, a lot of people are giving time and energy towards things in the grand scheme of things based on their lives that don't really matter. And it's
right.
like,
Mm,
where are you putting all this time and energy? Like, you don't even know what the hell you want to do with yourself. Like, your relationship with your partner is horrible. Your kids don't even know who you are. And you're
yeah,
like, oh, yeah, but I know what's going on in the Epstein files and I posted about it all day today. Like, hey, cool. Congratulations.
yeah. Oh.
You know?
Yeah, I think a lot of people unfortunately won't even realize this until they're on their deathbed. That's when this shit hits, for a lot of people. So it's just life-changing what you're talking about. It can save lives. You can save your life by realizing how what you're consuming and how much it's distracting you from the actual opportunity to know yourself and to become, alert and aware as to the people that you love and to be able to say the things, that are vulnerable that then gives people permission to do that the same. So it's quite the gift to give is just the modeling of becoming authentic.
Yeah, well said, man. And it is interesting because like we go through this journey and this path, and I look back to my days where I was sharing more and posting
Yeah.
more about certain things. And like I still have that part occasionally is like, Yerasimos, don't you think you should be educating more people on more of this stuff? And I'm kind of like, well, I have a podcast. We do our thing. If you want to listen, listen.
Yeah.
I'm focusing on the things I'm focusing on. And like I like peace and harmony. And like I'm not in that place where I want to like beat people over the head
Yeah.
with knowledge and go, look what I know. I'm right, you're wrong. You're a stupid idiot that wore a mask for freaking, 2 years. Like I just don't like wear a mask. Cool. I don't care. Like
Yeah.
it's not my world and my reality. And so it's again like our lives, we have these opportunities to take a step back and to reflect and go, where have I grown? Where have I
Yeah.
evolved? What has shifted? And it kind of feels nice to be in this place now where I am as a 45-year-old to go, you know, I'm really focusing on things that I find really matter. I'm slowing down more. I want more
Yeah.
presence. I want more simplicity. And yeah, it's nice. And at the same time, I respect people's choices to do what they do. But like I said, the proof is in the pudding. What is your
Yeah.
relationship to self? What is your relationship to your family, to your community, to your purpose? If those things are misaligned, then something needs to change,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Amazing. Oh, dude, thanks for taking the time, man. Appreciate everyone watching. Look forward to hiking with you again, dude. Hang out sometime.
For sure, man. I appreciate you. Thanks for the work that you do, and I'm just grateful that you invited me on.
Yeah.
And yeah, for all you that are tuning in and listening, thank you for spending 90 minutes or so with us.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you want to go to hereforthetruth.com, you can find everything that I'm about there and everything that I do with Joel. And for those of you that are gonna be at Confluence, you're gonna be at
Hmm.
Confluence. I'm gonna
Yeah.
be at Confluence.
Yeah.
It's an amazing event. So
Yeah.
I'm sure Joel, you have your coupon code that people could use to come, but come hang out with us, laugh,
Yeah.
get deep. It's a pretty special event.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited. I've never been, and I'm excited to just to connect with the community. Music and Sky was amazing, and look forward to finally getting down to Texas for this one. And yeah, I'm glad you'll be there. Look forward to hanging out, man.
Cool, brother.
Cool. All right. Much love, everybody. We'll see you next time, and appreciate everyone being here.